It started small. Not even a suspicion, just an inconvenience. Her phone buzzed on the dresser while she was in the shower, screen lighting up like it always did. Normally I wouldn't pay it any mind, but that night, something about the tone, the timing, the stillness in the house. It all made me look. One glance. That's all it was. Still tasting last night. Can't stop smiling. 6 words. Just 6. The sender was saved under the name Amelia, but the message didn't feel like something sent between girlfriends. My heart stuttered a bit. It wasn't graphic. It wasn't even explicit. But something about the phrasing, the suggestion, the warmth, the int asterisk Macy, cut deeper than it should have. I stared at it like I could force it to change meaning just by reading it enough times. But it didn't change. The words stayed. And the more I read them, the more they felt like a whispered secret I was never meant to hear. She came out of the bathroom humming something, hair wet, cheeks flushed from the heat. The towel clung to her shoulders, and there was steam trailing behind her like some kind of ghost. She didn't look guilty, not even a little. That almost made it worse. Cleared my throat. "Hey, your phone went off." She walked over, picked it up, didn't even hesitate. "Oh, that's just Amelia," she said with a half smile, tapping the screen. "She's always saying dumb stuff like that. Total drama queen. We were joking around last night." She looked up at me like I should be laughing, too. "Still tasting last night?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light, like I wasn't slowly unraveling inside. She rolled her eyes. "We had that weird lavender cheesecake at Liz's place. You know how girls are when there's wine involved. It's just a joke." She said it like it was obvious, like I was the one making it weird. Then she deleted the entire thread. No pause. No explanation. Just gone. That unsettled me more than the message itself. If it really was harmless, why wipe it? I opened my mouth, about to press a little harder, but she was already walking away, towel tucked tighter around her, singing to herself as she disappeared into the closet. I stood there alone in our bedroom, holding a weird weight in my chest. One of those feelings you don't have a name for yet. Not fear, not anger, not grief, just off. She went out that night, said she needed space, creative headspace. In her words, she'd been working on a short story collection, something about surreal dreamscapes and fractured identity. Normally, I encouraged it. She said the walks at night cleared her mind. But that night, I didn't say much. I just nodded and watched her tie her hair up like she always did when she was trying to feel effortless. She wore the same long coat she used when she wanted to look good without trying too hard. The one that hugged her shape in a way I always noticed. She kissed my cheek and told me not to wait up. I didn't. Instead, I sat on the couch with a drink in my hand and a colder feeling blooming behind my ribs. I didn't even turn on the TV. I just sat there in the quiet, listening to the walls creak, to the occasional hum of the fridge. All the tiny noises that keep a house from going completely still. I kept thinking about that message. I kept replaying the way she said, "Just a joke," the casualness. The way she deleted it like it didn't matter, like I shouldn't care. But I did care, and it did matter. The thing is, trust doesn't break all at once. A phrase, slowly, quietly. It starts with a single thread, barely noticeable. You pull it just a little just to see, and the whole thing doesn't unravel, not yet. It just weakens. That was the first thread. I told myself not to overreact. That maybe Amelia really was a wine-drunk friend. That maybe I really was overthinking it. But even as I poured myself another drink, I realized I couldn't remember Ellie ever mentioning an Amelia before. Not in her writers group. Not from work. Not anywhere. And I knew her friends. I knew all of them. She was always the social one. The one who told me every little detail about every weird conversation or awkward date her friends had gone on. That was part of our rhythm. She overshared, I listened, we laughed. But Amelia? Amelia had never come up. Not once. I tried to brush it off. I reminded myself of all the ways I might be wrong. Maybe Amelia was new. Maybe she really was just a weird joke friend. Maybe I was just insecure because work had been slow and I'd been coasting on fumes for a few weeks. Barely shaving, barely present. Maybe I was just projecting. But then I looked at her phone. Not in it, just at it. She'd left it on the coffee table when she left that night, and I remember noticing how spotless the screen was. Not a single notification. Nothing buzzing. Not even the little red dot from Instagram or the email icon. Clean. Too clean. Ellie's phone used to be chaos. Notifications stacked. Random group chats buzzing. Now it was like a ghost town. Either she suddenly got really good at clearing them or something had changed. It was subtle. But subtle things matter. I sat in that silence for hours. She didn't text. Didn't call. Didn't even send the "made it safe" message she used to send when she walked late at night. I watched the clock tick past midnight. Then 1. Then 2. At 2:13 a.m., the lock clicked. She came in quietly, coat draped over one arm, makeup still intact but just slightly smudged at the corners. Her smile flickered when she saw I was awake. "Didn't think you'd still be up," she said, toeing off her boots. "I couldn't sleep." She nodded, brushed past me. No questions. No explanations. The scent that lingered on her coat wasn't her perfume. It wasn't mine either. It was faint but masculine. She didn't notice me noticing. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. She went into the bathroom, turned on the faucet. I sat there, staring at the door like it might offer me answers if I waited long enough. She came back out a few minutes later, face washed, teeth brushed, lips clean. She slipped under the covers and faced away from me without a word. No kiss, no goodnight, just sleep or the performance of it. I lay next to her, wide awake, eyes on the ceiling, trying to shake the feeling that something had shifted. And here's the part that stuck with me most. When I finally turned to face her, hoping maybe we could talk, maybe I'd misread everything, she was already turned away, already gone. After that night, things didn't explode, they eroded. Slowly, quietly, like water leaking under floorboards, softening everything from the inside until you couldn't pretend the floor wasn't sagging. I kept trying to tell myself I was imagining things, that I was just shaken from the Amelia message, that one moment of doubt had poisoned everything that followed. But the truth? That night wasn't the start of my paranoia. It was the moment I finally stopped ignoring it. The change had been creeping in for months, maybe longer, and now that I let myself look back honestly, I saw it everywhere. Ellie used to be careless with her phone. Not in a neglectful way, just casual. She'd leave it face up on the kitchen counter while she showered. It would buzz, and I'd see names I recognized, Jules from work, her sister, notifications from those dumb astrology apps she loved. There was no secrecy in her world. No walls between us. Lately, though, her phone was always close, clutched tight in her hand, even during dinner. If she set it down at all, it was face down, screen dark, no previews. She added a lock screen password. I didn't even ask for it, but she volunteered a reason one night while stirring pasta. Something about her friend getting hacked. "Better safe than sorry," she'd said. I nodded, but the timing felt off. Then there were the showers. She used to sing in the shower. Badly. Loudly. Half the time, she'd belt show tunes or some weird indie band she'd discovered that week. She'd call me in mid-lather just to laugh at her own made-up lyrics. It was part of our routine. It was stupid, but it was ours. Now the bathroom was silent. Door locked. Music off. Water running, but no voice behind it. Sometimes she'd be in there for almost an hour. Not relaxing, not pampering, just hiding. She used to be fine stepping out in a towel, asking me to grab her lotion or a t-shirt. But these days, she was already dressed when she came out, phone in hand. The distance between us became a new kind of normal, a quiet space neither of us acknowledged out loud. Her smiles felt thinner, more rehearsed, like the muscle memory of affection without the heart behind it. She still said, "Love you," before bed, but the words felt like she was tucking in a habit, not a husband. Even the way she looked started to change. Ellie had always been effortlessly beautiful to me, even in old t-shirts and messy buns. But now she was dressing up more often. Makeup on point, lips colored, nails freshly done. For what, exactly? She didn't have meetings. She worked freelance from home, and most days didn't even leave the house. But she looked like she was heading to a magazine shoot. I mentioned it once, lightly, jokingly. You going somewhere fancy I should know about? She laughed. A little too hard. No, just trying to feel good about myself. You know how it is. I didn't, but I let it go. Then came the creative walks. They used to be a genuine thing. Ellie would take her camera and go wander, shoot old architecture, rusted staircases, forgotten corners of the city. She always came home with stories. The stray cat that followed her. The weird guy at the bus stop who complimented her boots. The way the light hit a certain alley like a movie set. But lately, her stories dried up. She still went on the walks, but she stopped sharing. She'd come back hours later, say nothing interesting today, and brush past me on her way to the bedroom. Once I checked her camera. I know how that sounds. I hated doing it. I told myself I was looking for reassurance, proof that I was just being paranoid. The memory card was empty. I checked again. Different folder. Same result. Wiped clean. Who wipes clean a camera memory card after a casual photography walk? She started joining groups again, things she hadn't cared about in years. Book clubs, art collectives, even a photography meetup she never mentioned before. She claimed it helped her feel inspired, connected, whatever. But I never saw new books around the house. Never saw her editing photos or even checking the forums she used to love. I offered to come along once. It might be fun, I said. I can just tag along, not bother you. She laughed, tight and brittle. It's just kind of my thing, you know? A space to be me without feeling like I have to explain everything. Without me there, she meant. I nodded like it made sense. I tried not to resent it. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting. She started leaving the house before I was even out of bed. I'd hear the front door click shut and glance at the clock, 6:12 a.m. Sometimes earlier. I'd text her. Early start. She'd reply hours later with something vague, had a burst of energy, or chasing the sunrise. It wasn't always like this. When we first met, Ellie used to cling to the warmth of the bed like a cat in winter. I used to bring her coffee in bed just to coax her up. Now, I barely caught the scent of her perfume before she vanished for the day. And the perfume, that's what broke me. It wasn't the one I gave her. She always wore this light, airy scent, jasmine and citrus. I knew it like I knew her laugh. But now it was heavier, deeper. Like something you'd wear to a dim restaurant, not a bookstore. She claimed she just wanted something more grown-up. Said she was evolving, figuring out who she really was. I told her she smelled great even though it didn't feel like her anymore. Like she'd stepped into a costume and forgotten to take it off. Maybe the worst part was how rational she made me feel for questioning anything. She was calm, always. Unbothered. Like I was the only one feeling the distance, like I was the one inventing a problem. But love, when it's real, doesn't hide. It doesn't speak in half-smiles and ambiguous explanations. It doesn't show up dressed like someone else. It doesn't vanish behind locked doors. Love is loud when it's there. Present. Felt. What I was feeling wasn't presence. It was the hollow echo it left behind. There's a difference between suspicion and certainty. Suspicion haunts you, it lingers, festers. But certainty? Certainty breaks you clean. It was a Sunday morning. I remember because I woke up before the alarm, the light barely creeping in through the curtains. Ellie was already dressed. That alone wasn't new anymore. She'd taken to waking early, leaving without much explanation. But that morning, she lingered just long enough to say she was heading out for a shoot, something about an abandoned train yard across town. She used to ask me to come on those. Said I had a better eye for color even though I didn't. But that morning she didn't offer. She just said, "I'll be gone a while," and kissed my forehead. That kiss felt like a punctuation mark. Something final. I stared at the ceiling for a few minutes after she left, debating whether I was being paranoid again. But something in her voice had changed. A tremor too practiced. A pause before she named the location like she'd picked it last minute or pulled it out of thin air. I got dressed, slow and mechanical, like I didn't know what I was doing yet. I didn't tell myself I was going to follow her. I didn't even bring my phone at first. Just grabbed my keys, got in the car, and drove. The train yard was an old relic tucked behind a stretch of forgotten highway, all rusted tracks and crumbling sheds. It used to be popular with urban explorers and photographers. I hadn't been there in years. When I pulled up, the parking lot was empty. No cars. No van for a photo group. Not even a cyclist or jogger in sight. I sat there for a while, engine off, watching the wind stir the tall grass around the fence. I told myself she was probably running late. That she could have gotten dropped off. That the group parked somewhere else. But even as I thought it, I didn't believe it. After 20 minutes, I got out and started walking the perimeter. The gravel crunched beneath my shoes, too loud in the quiet. I kept expecting to hear voices, laughter, footsteps, shutters clicking. But there was nothing. Just the wind and my own heartbeat. I rounded the far side of the main building, keeping low by instinct. I didn't know what I expected or what I was afraid of. Maybe I didn't want to catch her in a lie. Maybe I did. Then I saw them. They were standing near one of the old sheds, half-shielded by overgrown brush and rusted metal. He was taller than her, wearing a green jacket and jeans. She stood close, too close, her hands tucked into her coat, the one I'd seen her wear so many times that winter, the one I used to pull tight around her when she got cold. She looked warm now. Comfortable. He reached for her waist casually, like it was a reflex. She leaned in without hesitation. They didn't talk. They just stood there for a second, heads close, foreheads nearly touching. Then they kissed. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't nervous. It was slow, practiced, and devastating. I froze behind the fence, barely breathing. My fingers dug into the wood like it could somehow hold me up, keep me from falling into whatever this moment was turning into. They kissed like they'd done it before. Like this wasn't new. Like it wasn't wrong. When they finally pulled apart, she laughed. That soft, breathy kind of laugh she used to give me when I surprised her with takeout or made up a song about our dog. She used to laugh that way in our kitchen. Now she was giving it to him. They walked off toward the trees, arms brushing, bodies moving in tandem like a pair that had found its rhythm. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. That moment stripped away every excuse I'd made for her. Every doubt I'd allowed. Every quiet benefit of the doubt I'd handed out like candy just to keep the illusion alive. There wasn't another explanation. There wasn't another Amelia. It was him. It had always been someone. And now I had seen it. I don't know how long I stayed there. My legs ached, but I couldn't move. My mind was blank and screaming at the same time. Like a static-filled TV channel where every thought tried to surface all at once and none of them stuck. I finally turned and walked back to the car, hands numb in my jacket pockets, heart moving somewhere behind me like it didn't want to follow. I didn't cry. Not yet. There was a numbness that wrapped around me like a coat. Heavy. Protective. On the drive home, I didn't play music. Didn't check my phone. I didn't think about what I'd say to her or how I'd confront it. I just drove. Past the coffee shop we used to sit at after grocery runs. Drove by the bookstore where she once surprised me with a first edition. It all felt like some other life. When I got home, the house was still. It was always too quiet these days, but that day, it felt like a tomb. I walked into the kitchen, sat at the table, and stared at the tile. I couldn't tell you how long I stayed there. Minutes. Hours. Time didn't mean anything. Then my phone buzzed. Shoot went long. Coffee after with the girls. Don't wait up. Her punctuation was perfect. No typos. Just like the text she sent the night I saw the Amelia message. Clean. Curated. Rehearsed. She still believed I was that guy. The trusting one. The one who sat at home and waited for the artist wife to return with stories and blurry photos of light through broken windows. But I wasn't him anymore. I looked at the message for a long time, the little heart emoji staring back like a dare. I didn't respond. I deleted it. Not because it hurt, but because I didn't need it anymore. I'd seen everything I needed to see. I didn't go home right away. After the train yard, after seeing them together like that, something inside me cracked, not loud, not dramatic. It was more like a quiet split down the middle. The kind of damage that doesn't make a sound until everything gives way. I got in my car and drove without direction, just letting the miles build beneath me. I passed places I didn't recognize. Gas stations with sun-faded signs. Empty lots filled with rust and weeds. Every so often, I'd pull into a side road, park, and just sit there, engine ticking as it cooled, silence wrapping around me like a weighted blanket I couldn't throw off. At some point, I found myself in front of an old diner, the kind you see in road trip movies, all flickering neon and cracked windows. It was barely occupied, one waitress leaning on the counter flipping through a magazine, a couple old guys nursing coffees in the corner. I went in. I didn't even think about it, I just walked to the farthest booth and sat down. I didn't order. The waitress gave me a once-over, probably sizing me up, disheveled hair, eyes red from staring too long, clothes wrinkled like I'd slept in them. She didn't ask questions. Just walked by slowly and left a glass of water at the table without saying a word. I stared at the condensation dripping down the sides, watching it pool onto the tabletop. It reminded me of the morning after a storm. Too quiet. Too still. My phone buzzed again. Thinking of you. Hope your day's going well. From her. It was insane. Almost insulting. As if she hadn't just pressed her lips to someone else a few hours earlier. as if I hadn't watched it happen with my own eyes. I didn't reply. I didn't even open the message. Just stared at the notification like it belonged to a life that no longer included me. I stayed in that booth until the sky began to shift, until the pink hue of evening started creeping along the windows. At some point, I became aware of the music playing from the jukebox, some old soul track humming quietly under the fluorescent buzz. It felt out of place. Too warm for what I felt. Eventually, I stood up and left a tip on the table even though I hadn't ordered anything. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't know how else to say thank you to someone who let me sit there without forcing conversation. I drove home in the dark. The windows of our apartment were lit when I pulled in. She was home. Probably on the couch, wine glass in hand, pretending to scroll through photography blogs or watching one of those moody French dramas she pretended to understand. I didn't go in right away. I sat in the car with the engine off, the overhead light casting a dim glow on the dashboard. I scrolled through old pictures on my phone. Us at the lake. Her in the passenger seat, wind in her hair, laughing at something I said. T of her hands, fingers stained with ink from a poem she was writing, rings slightly twisted, nails chipped. Back then, I loved her chaos. I loved the way she never fit perfectly into the lines, how she left shoes in random corners and notebooks half open on the kitchen table. It used to feel like life with her was unpredictable in a beautiful way. Now it just felt like a maze she'd built so I'd never find the exit. When I finally walked inside, she greeted me with that same practiced ease. "Hey, you're home late," she said from the kitchen, turning from the sink with a smile. "Everything okay?" I studied her. Hair pulled back. Her favorite sweater, the one with the little hole at the wrist. No makeup. A glass of wine on the counter, half empty. She looked like someone playing the part of my wife. Like she'd slipped into the costume minutes before I walked in. "Yeah," I said, voice flat. "Just drove around." She walked over and brushed her fingers against my arm. "Rough day?" I nodded. "You could say that." She didn't press. Just handed me a glass and kissed my cheek, then moved back toward the couch. That night, we barely spoke. We sat next to each other on the sofa, a movie playing in the background, the volume low. I couldn't tell you what it was. Something foreign, probably. Something moody. She laughed once, softly, at a scene I didn't understand. I turned to look at her, and in that moment I realized she wasn't really there. Her body was. Her voice. Her movements. But the person I'd known, the one I trusted, the one I used to share everything with, she was gone. In her place was someone calm, careful, curated. Someone who'd learned how to smile through guilt. And I played along. I sat there beside her like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't stood behind a broken fence that morning and watched her betray me with a man whose name I didn't even know. At one point, she rested her head on my shoulder. My body tensed on instinct. She didn't notice. Or she pretended not to. When the credits rolled, she got up and stretched. "I think I'm going to bed," she said, stifling a yawn. "Long day tomorrow." I nodded. "Yeah. Me too." She lingered for a second like she wanted to say something, then leaned in and kissed my temple. "Love you," she whispered. I didn't say it back. Not out of malice. I just couldn't. She left the room without looking back. I sat there for hours after she went to bed. The wine in my glass went untouched. The TV flickered quietly, showing previews for something I'd never watch. My phone buzzed again. Another message. This one from earlier. I'd missed it somehow. "Can we do that again next weekend?" I still can't stop thinking about it. It wasn't from her. Not directly. The number wasn't saved, but the preview said enough. I recognized the message style. No name. No context. Just confidence. Like someone who wasn't afraid of being found out. I finally felt something in my chest, not anger, not even heartbreak. Just resolve. She thought she had me safely folded away, tucked into the role of the patient partner. The passive one. The background character in her evolving life. But I wasn't passive. I was observant. And I'd been taking notes. After that night, I stopped waiting for the truth to reveal itself. She had already handed it to me, not in words, but in patterns. In silence. In her absence. Ellie carried on like nothing had happened. Like I was still the man who didn't notice things. She sent me little texts during the day. Random emojis. A photo of a latte with foam shaped like a bear. A song she said reminded her of me. She smiled more now strangely. Touched my arm in passing. Kissed my forehead when she thought I wasn't paying attention. She was laying it on thick. Like a kid covering up a mess before the grown-ups got home. But the more she smiled, the less I trusted it. And the clearer I saw her. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. I just watched. I documented. And when her tablet accidentally synced with our home network one morning, that's when everything started falling into place. She left it charging on the kitchen counter. Unlocked. Maybe she assumed I wouldn't care. Maybe she thought I wouldn't notice that a new device had joined the Wi-Fi, or that it had been registered to a different email, one she never shared with me. But I noticed. I opened the device. No password. No fingerprint lock. Just a screen that lit up like Pandora's box. She'd been careless. Or confident. Maybe both. At first, it looked innocent enough: emails, calendar invites, apps for editing photos. But when I opened the messaging app, my stomach dropped. His name wasn't saved under Nathan. It was just an emoji, a wine glass. But the thread was long, int asterisk mate, and damning. There were messages about where to meet, what time. Inside jokes. Flirty one-liners. Photos. So many photos. Some from inside hotel rooms. Some selfies they'd taken together at the lake we'd visited for our anniversary the year before. The same bench, the same backdrop. But this time it was them. The worst part wasn't the images. It wasn't even the ones where she looked genuinely happy. Those stung, but I could process them. What shattered something deeper was a single message she sent him, attached to a photo of me working at my desk, unaware. "This is Levi, my sweet little house cat. Harmless. Won't fight back. Harmless." She laughed about me. To him. I don't know how long I sat there staring at the screen, that one sentence burning itself into my brain. Every version of myself, the husband, the friend, the man who held her through panic attacks, all of them collapsed into silence at that line. That was when something inside me hardened. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was cruel. And I'd been protecting her. For what? I started gathering everything. Screensh asterisk ts. Message logs. Saved the photos to a drive. Copied her emails and the hotel bookings made under fake names. One receipt from a boutique in 2 towns over was charged to a card I didn't recognize. I checked our bank account. She'd quietly withdrawn almost $5,000 over the past few months and transferred it into a card tied to an account I never knew existed. The transfers were small enough to go unnoticed unless you were looking. But I was looking now. The line was crossed. Not just emotionally, financially. That made things different. It made them actionable. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even tell anyone, not yet. This wasn't a breakdown. This was preparation. I contacted a lawyer the next day. Told him I needed advice, nothing official yet. He asked me to come in with documentation. I brought the tablet, the bank statements, printed log of messages. He read through them quietly, no judgment on his face. When he finished, he looked up and asked a single question. "What do you want to walk away with?" "Peace," I said. "And my dignity." He nodded. "You'll get both. And maybe more." That night, I slept in the guest room. I told her I had a headache. She barely looked up from her book. "Feel better," she murmured. I watched her from the hallway as she curled up under the covers, eyes scanning the pages, phone lighting up beside her like a silent co-conspirator. I wondered if she was texting him right then. I didn't care. Not anymore. The next few days I was quiet, purposefully so. I became deliberate in everything. My words, my movements, my presence. I started backing up our shared files, downloading bank statements, changing my passwords. I left no trace. She never noticed. Or maybe she did, and she thought I was just retreating further. That I was becoming even more harmless. Her mistake. She left for another walk that Friday night. Said she needed time to think. "I feel so disconnected lately," she offered, fishing for sympathy she no longer deserved. I nodded. "Take your time." She kissed my cheek again, the same way she had before walking into someone else's arms. As soon as the door closed, I opened the tablet again. There were more messages. One from earlier that day, him asking, "You sure he won't find out?" Her reply chilled me. "Levi still thinks I'm planning a trip for his birthday. I could disappear for a weekend and he'd apologize for not packing my charger." She thought she was invincible. She thought I was stupid. She thought I was still in love. I wasn't sure what I felt anymore. It wasn't hate. I wasn't angry in the traditional sense. It was colder than that. focused, like I was seeing things in absolute clarity for the first time. The betrayal wasn't some drunken mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was methodical, repeated, callous, and the worst part? She had convinced herself she was the protagonist. Later that night, while she was gone, I took photos of the tablet screen, printed the bank withdrawals, created a timeline. I found an app she'd used to disguise texts, a second number embedded in her phone. She wasn't just cheating. She was covering her tracks with software and burner emails. Like a spy in her own home. She returned around midnight. Her eyes were bright, her skin flushed. She smelled like that same perfume, the one I hadn't bought her. "Sorry I'm late," she said casually. "Jules and I got caught in a long talk." I nodded. "No worries." She looked surprised. Maybe she expected suspicion. Maybe she was disappointed that I didn't care. I wondered if that scared her more, not being caught but no longer being worth chasing. I didn't explode. I didn't slam doors or toss accusations like grenades. Instead, I picked one thread from her tightly wound secret life and tugged, just enough to unravel it. It started with a single *T. I posted it anonymously on a local forum. A message from her to Nathan, sneaking out while Levi snored. "You're addictive." No names, no location, just those words and a quiet caption. "How would you feel if this was about your husband?" I didn't expect the post to blow up, but it did. Comments rolled in, speculation, recognition, and before long people began connecting the dots. They knew her. Some had worked with her. One or two even recognized him, Nathan. Except Nathan wasn't some single fling living in the shadows. He was married. Her name was Melissa. I'd never met her, but apparently Ellie had. Complimented her shoes once at a gallery event. Smiled at her. Lied to her. Melissa messaged me out of the blue. She had *TS. Photos. Voice notes. A full calendar of weekends and afternoons that lined up perfectly with the ones I thought Ellie was creating or shooting. And then she wrote, "I thought I was losing my mind. Thank you for showing me I wasn't crazy." That sentence, it stuck with me, because I had been feeling exactly the same. The gaslighting, the half-truths, the subtle shifts in routine that make you question your own memory. I wasn't crazy either. We shared what we had, mapped out the overlap, discovered they had been doing this for nearly a year. Carefully, boldly, stupidly. Melissa confronted Nathan that weekend. I don't know how it went. I didn't ask. That wasn't my battle. But Ellie knew. The silence from his end must have spooked her, because the very next day, she tried to talk to me. Her voice cracked. She said she was scared, that things had gotten out of control, that she hadn't meant for it to happen like this. But the *TS said otherwise. The divorce was fast. My lawyer made sure of that. The evidence Ellie left behind stripped her of any leverage she thought she had. When we sat in mediation, she tried to cry. Said she was under pressure and emotionally manipulated. But her signature on that withdrawal slip didn't look pressured. Her photo next to him at that lake didn't look confused. She left with a fraction of what she'd asked for. On the day she came to collect her things, I didn't say much. I helped her carry a few boxes to the door. She looked different, like she had shrunk inside her own body. Smaller, quieter. Maybe this was her come down. Or maybe it was just the absence of the double life that once thrilled her. When she turned to say goodbye, I didn't answer. Not because I hated her, but because I had nothing left to say. The apartment was quiet after she left. Too quiet at first. But it wasn't the uncomfortable kind of silence. It was clean. Empty in a way that made room for something new. I adopted a dog from the shelter the following week. A nervous little mutt with crooked ears and big eyes who reminded me how to laugh again. I started running in the mornings. I opened the windows more. I stopped sleeping on just one side of the bed. Sometimes I still think about the early days with Ellie. Before the distance. Before the coded messages and late-night lies. And I wonder, did she ever love me in the way I loved her? Maybe she did. Or maybe I just loved enough for both of us, until I couldn't anymore. Melissa and I check in once in a while. Nothing romantic. Just the strange bond that forms between people who crawl out of the same wreckage. We don't talk about them much. Just life, moving forward, what healing looks like in small ways. One night she texted me months later. You know, I think we made it out better. And she was right. Ellie once told me, during a fight, you need to learn how to solve your own problems. Funny thing is, I did. And she lost everything because she thought I wouldn't.